Hello everyone. Hearty greetings from Adyar on this auspicious occasion of full moon of Asala, also known as Guru full moon. The life story of the Gautama Buddha, the first flower of humanity, begins about 2600 years ago in Lumbini, near the border of Nepal and India, where a boy, Siddhartha Gautama, was born in a royal family of King Suddhodana of ruling Sakya clan and Queen Mahamaya Devi. He was given the name Siddhartha, one who fulfills his aim, Gautama, the family name. Post-enlightenment, he was also given the name of Shakya Muni and Tathagata. His mother, Mahamaya, dreamt one night that an elephant entered her womb, and 10 lunar months later, while she was strolling in the garden of Lumbini, Siddhartha was born, and the legend says that as soon as he was born, he walked 7 steps, and at every step a lotus flower blossomed, which is a symbolical way of expressing his divine nature. Although Mother Mahamaya died soon after, and he was brought up by his mother's sister, Mahaprajapati Gautami, who later became Gautama Buddha's first female disciple.
Growing up, the Buddha was exceptionally intelligent and compassionate. Tall, strong, and handsome, Siddhartha belonged to the warrior caste. At the time of his birth, a sage predicted that Siddhartha would either become a great king or a spiritual leader. Since, like most of the parents, his parents too desired a powerful ruler for their kingdom. So they tried to prevent Siddhartha from seeing the unsatisfactory and temporary nature of the world. They surrounded him with every kind of luxury and pleasure that one can think of. In the meantime, Siddhartha completely mastered the important combat training, even winning his wife Yashodhara in an archery contest, and later had a son named Rahul with her, both of whom would become Gautama Buddha's disciple later. But amidst all the luxuries and comforts of life provided by his father, Siddhartha still felt a void inside. He was not satisfied or contented by all the material pleasures. So one day he decided to go out of his palace and meet the people of the city and take a visit to the city. During this visit to the city, although it was very carefully and cleverly planned by his father, the divine plan had something else in its mind. And during his visit, Siddhartha saw a decrepit old man, a sick man, and a dead body being carried to the cremation ground. He was very upset and depressed and sad to realize that old age, sickness, and death would come to everyone he loved, and they will be snatched away from him, and more so they will come to himself. And in that case, Siddhartha had no refuge to offer his loved ones.
The next morning, the prince walked past a meditator who was sitting in deep absorption. When their eyes met and their minds linked, Siddhartha stopped. He was mesmerized. In a flash, he realized that the perfection he had been seeking outside must be within himself. Meeting that man gave the future Buddha a first and enticing taste of the treasure within, a true and lasting refuge, which he knew he had to experience himself for the good of all. In order to do that, Buddha decided to leave his royal responsibilities and his family. So then, he could realize the true nature of existence. He left the palace secretly and set off alone into the forest. Over the next 6 years, he met many meditation teachers and mastered their techniques. Always, he found that they took him to a higher level. But still there was something higher. Then he engaged in extreme austerities till he almost became like a skeleton. One day, he overheard a musician telling his disciple that the strings of Veena should not be very tight or they will break, and also not very loose or they will not play. They should be under just right tension. Gautama felt these words held great wisdom, and he left his path of extreme austerity, and later, when he received a rice pudding from a village girl named Sujata, that brought him back to his senses. Finally, at a place called Bodhyaya, under a peepal tree, the future Buddha decided to remain in meditation until he knew mind's true nature and could benefit all beings. After spending 6 days and nights cutting through mind's most subtle obstacles, which is allegorically explained in the form of his war with Mara, the king of desire, and his accomplices. Then Siddhartha reached enlightenment on the full moon morning of May, a week before he turned 35, and became Gautama Buddha, the awakened one.
At the moment of full realization, all veils of mixed feelings and stiff ideas dissolved, and Buddha experienced an all-encompassing love and compassion and the eternal now. All separation in time and space disappeared. Past, present, and future, near and far, melted into one radiant state of intuitive bliss. He became timeless, all-pervading awareness. Through every cell in his body, he knew and he was everything. He became aware of all his past incarnations that he has taken through this evolution. After his enlightenment, he gave his first sermon to the 5 individuals who were his co-disciples earlier but left him due to a matter of disagreement. But now, seeing Siddhartha, they immediately knew that Siddhartha has achieved something, and they now became his disciples. And this was called putting in motion the wheel of law. Dhammacakkappavattana. Throughout his life, Buddha gave teachings related to everyone's upliftment of consciousness. But the core of Buddhist teachings are Panchashila, Four Noble Truths, and the Noble Eightfold Path. Panchashila, or the five precepts given by Buddha as the most important system of morality in Buddhism, which is free from any ritual, dogma, or superstition that has crept in various religions. And it is explained how these five precepts remain eternally relevant. Those five precepts are: abstain from falsehood, not to speak the untruth; abstain from theft, not to steal; abstain from killing, not to indulge in violence; abstain from sexual misconduct, to show fidelity; abstain from intoxication, not to indulge in substance abuse. All of these five precepts carry several layers of meaning, which one can arrive at, understand those meanings once we begin to contemplate them and try to implement in our daily life. The Four Noble Truths that Buddha gave comprises the essence of Buddha's teachings. Though they leave much left unexplained, they are the truth of suffering, the truth of the cause of suffering, the truth of the end of suffering, and the truth of the path that leads to the end of suffering. That is dukkha, dukkha samudaya, dukkha nirodha, dukkha nirodha marga. More simply put, suffering exists. It has a cause, it has an end, and it has a cause to bring about its end. The notion of suffering here is not intended to convey a negative worldview, as very oftenly misunderstood by Western philosophers or Western seekers, but rather a pragmatic perspective that deals with the world as it is and attempts to reach to the root of suffering and to rectify it. The concept of pleasure or bliss is not denied, but acknowledged as fleeting. Pursuit of pleasure can only continue what is ultimately an unquenchable thirst, but the bliss which is associated with nirvana is eternal. And the same logic belies an understanding of happiness. If we are attached to the material, transient things, in the end, only aging, sickness, and death are certain and unavoidable. If we are attached to the spirit, nirvana is unavoidable.
The Eightfold Path consists of 8 practices: right view, right resolve, right speech, right conduct, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right samadhi, meditative absorption of union. During his life, Buddha traveled on foot throughout northern India. He taught constantly for 45 years. People of all castes and professions, from kings to courtesans, were drawn to him. He answered their questions always pointing towards that which is ultimately real, and to have loving kindness to all beings. Throughout his life, Buddha encouraged his students to question his teachings and confirm them through their own experience. This non-dogmatic attitude still characterizes Buddhism today. Buddha, at the end of his life, ate his last meal, which he had received as an offering from a blacksmith named Kunda. Then he fell violently ill. And after that, Buddha instructed his attendant Ananda to convince Kunda, who was very worried due to that the meal eaten at his place had nothing to do with his death, and that his meal would be a source of the greatest merit, as it provided the last meal for a Buddha. There is an occult tradition that Buddha promised that as long as anyone is suffering, he will keep coming back, showering his blessings to all once a year in his subtle form, and that is the festival of Vesak.